Hey guys, how's it going? I'd like to introduce myself as Adjunct Professor Phil Pinzoni. It's really nice to meet you. I'm in my home office, and this is kind of what it's going to look like this semester. A positive, though, is you get to see my dog. Rocco, come here. Good boy. So this is my dog, Rocco. Let me see. Say hi to the students. Oh, you're getting heavy. He is the best. So this is Rocco. And yeah, again, another little positive about this whole situation we're in. I'm really excited to be here. So I've been a professor, an adjunct professor for 2.5 years. I was a TA when I was actually at Buff State for my master's. So I kind of just never left school. I didn't like school growing up, but I kind of found my niche and I'm just running with it. So as you guys know, you are enrolled in environmental biology with me, and basically this is what you're going to see throughout the semester. You're going to see my face, you're going to see just the straight up PowerPoint, and sometimes I'll inlay my face on the PowerPoint. You know, I might get creative later on, and when we get into the biomes unit, especially the temperate in temperate ecosystems, because that's where we live, I actually might take video footage of hikes of forests around us just to get a little bit more immersive, but for the most part this is what it's going to look like. So without further ado, we again are going to learn about environmental biology at this wonderful institution that I hold very near and dear to my heart, Buffalo State College. I went there again for my undergrad and my master's, so absolutely love the school, have a very good relationship with a lot of individuals in the biology department, and I'm very lucky to be working here. So, the learning objectives of this course are to advance the student's knowledge and understanding of the principles and processes involved with environmental biology. I'm going to acquaint the student with methods and techniques for analyzing and evaluating environmental problems, as well as mitigation tactics. So obviously there's a lot of environmental problems. A mitigation tactic is how humans are trying to combat and mitigate those problems. I'm going to inform the student about how other species throughout Earth's long history have altered the environment. And I'm going to equip the student with tools required to carry out an educated argument. Now, you hear the word argument and you have a negative connotation to it, right? Two people are arguing, it's not a good thing. But in science, that is how we advance the sciences, right? There is a general idea of some topic, and to change that, you have to have a really good argument in place to combat that general hypothesis. So we're going to learn about that a little bit later. So in science, an educated argument is not a negative connotation. It's how we kind of talk about the sciences. It's how we advance the field that we're interested in. So this is on the syllabus as well. Your grade is going to be determined on weekly homework assignments, quizzes, midterm, and a final exam. So there's not going to be any extra credit opportunity. So if you fall behind and you send me an email and say, hey, I'm falling behind, can I have an extra credit assignment? No. You just have to stay with it. There's really no excuse because we're in this pandemic, and I'm laying out all the stuff you need to do. Every month you have a calendar in Blackboard that shows what assignments are due, what tests and quizzes are coming up. So there's just no room for any slacking. So the breakdown of the grades are as following. Homework is a huge chunk, right? 40% of your grade comes from homework. and you're gonna get bombarded with weekly homework assignments. In the first month, it's gonna be like 2 homework assignments a week, but as we get more comfortable with the Connect and the Connect code, you'll be rocking out at least 3 a week, 3 homework assignments a week. Quizzes, 15% of your grade. The midterm is 20% of your grade, and then we have a final exam versus 25% of your grade. All in all, 100% is made up there. So my office hours, ... Kind of weird. I don't really have an office on campus that I'm using, so this is my office. They're not really office hours, right? So you're going to email me if you have any issues. If you want like an in-face thing, we can do a Zoom meeting. You guys should all be familiar with Zoom. You should be downloading that. So it's going to be by appointment only. So email me if you have any issues, and if you would like a Zoom meeting, let me know and we'll set up an appointment. The book, again, this is on Blackboard. The required text is the 9th edition of Principles of Environmental Science by Cunningham and Cunningham. Again, the 9th edition. Please, every year, students do this. Do not buy a used book for this class because it does not come with a Connect code. You'll end up struggling to send it back. Just trust me. Listen to this, please. Just get the Connect code. You get access to an ebook. The Connect code is at Buffalo State. I made it very clear to the bookstore. Do not even get the book in. Just get the Connect code. So you can go to the bookstore, give the people working in the bookstore your class schedule. They'll look at it and they'll say you need this Connect code. Now, it is actually a little bit cheaper to just get the Connect code not through the bookstore. So if you go and click on, if you go on Blackboard in the content folder, there's a homework folder in the content folder. If you click the homework folder and click on that first assignment, it'll prompt you to put in your Connect code. Now, if you don't have a Connect code, you can buy it right there, and it's like, I think it's like $10 to $15 cheaper if you do it that way. It's a little more expensive if you go through Buffalo State, but that is up to you. Just make sure you don't buy a used version of this book, because every semester, students are like, I bought the book, it doesn't come with a Connect code. And yes, I tell you guys every semester. So do that. If you guys have any issues, again, shoot me an email. If you have issues with the Connect code and you email me and you're all nervous and stuff and I'm not getting back to you like right away, guess what? McGraw-Hill, if you Google search McGraw-Hill help or assistance, they are amazing. They will help you like that. You'll be on hold for like 2 minutes, but then they will get you access and help you out and tell you what you need to know to get access and to get on this platform. Another thing I do every semester is I talk about a weekly workload. So most of you are probably a full-time student. So a full-time student, think about that. So your parents, maybe you already worked full-time. The average full-time job is 40 hours a week, right? 40 hours a week. So if you're a full-time student, you should be working 40 hours a week. Now, it's tough being a student because guess what? You're not getting paid, but this is your job, right? This is your job right now, and it is a glorious time to be alive as a student. Why? Because you get to study stuff, you get to advance yourself, you get to spread your wings and find out what you want to do with your life, and you need to work hard. So 40 hours a week. So let's just say you are taking 5 classes, 40 hours divided by those 5 classes equals 8 hours a week allocated to each course you are enrolled in. So we are going to have 2 to 3 lectures a week, so that's around 2.5 hours. You have book work and studying for exams and tests, that's another 2 to 3 hours. Guys, you're only looking at 4, 5, maybe 6 hours with this class alone. So that's not even 8 hours, so there's no excuse to fall behind, especially during this pandemic where you just have to grind it out. You just have to do your work. Again, I am very transparent in what I want you guys to do, so just focus, put your head down, and get this stuff done. I'm gonna teach you guys 6 units along the way, and before I get into that, you should know a little something about this course. So you're buying this book, right? And you're gonna have all these assignments throughout this book. My lectures are separate from the book, right? It's a little bit weird, but I have a different approach to this field of science, environmental biology. I find that you can learn more about environmental sciences if you do these textbook readings and all these different chapters from the book, and then you listen to my lecture. So again, the textbook stuff and much of the homework is its own separate entity from my lecture. The exams, the midterm and the final exams and most of the quizzes are going to be from my lecture. Now they do overlap a little bit on Unit 4, and there are obviously reoccurring themes with the book and my lecture, but they are pretty much separate. So again, you don't have to study the book for my exams. You have to just take notes during lecture and you study that for the exams. So the units that I'm going to teach separate from the book are Unit 1, I'm going to introduce environmental biology. We're going to learn about graphs, we're going to learn about scales, we're going to learn about different disciplines. Extinction events and organism evolution is Unit 2. I love Unit 2. So right now we are actually in the 6th major extinction event known as the Anthropocene. Anthrop is the prefix for humans. Like anthropology is the study of humans. The Anthropocene is the time of humans, and unfortunately this human-dominated time on the planet scale is associated with an extinction event. So we should know that. We should know that many organisms around the world are going extinct, but you also should know that this isn't the first time this has happened. Extinction events have been occurring since the genesis of our planet. Since our planet collided, these celestial objects collided to create our Earth. Obviously, there weren't any species on the planet at that time. As time progressed through billions of years, we have more and more organisms evolving, and then we have other cataclysmic events happening to our planet throughout time. Many species go extinct. There has been 5 past extinction events that we're going to learn about, and then finally we're going to lead into Unit 3, which is climate change. It's this newer idea of what's happening now, and humans are the catalyst for climate change and the catalyst for this 6th major extinction event. So the Unit 2 and Unit 3 are kind of depressing, I'm going to be honest. It's tough to, learning about all this stuff that's negative about the way humans interact with the planet, it just gets depressing. And it's just a fact. Like, I can't water this stuff down. Like, this is really happening. So, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. The way I combat this is Unit 4. So, Unit 4 is about biomes and biodiversity. So, we're going to see what this planet still has. I'm going to try and invoke some wonder about this amazing planet that we still live on. Like, it's not all over, right? We still have a lot to save. We still have a lot to fight for. And biomes and biodiversities, it should kind of invigorate you to see the diversity and all the different ecosystems we still have on our wonderful planet. Unit number 5 is forest management and fire disturbances. So, a little more about me. I love the study of ecology. I love hiking around different ecosystems, identifying different plants. I'm big on fungi, so that's the study. I like studying mushrooms and different fungal species. And I got really big into old growth forests last year. I taught a forest ecology course at UB. So I've been finding old growth forests, which are forests that are extremely old, like the name suggests. And some of these forests in New York have never been logged. So you're looking at trees that could be 500 years old on the East Coast. These eastern hemlocks, an older, long-lived species, they found individuals in these old growth systems that are upward of 500 years old. So hiking through forests, finding these trees that have been around before Europeans settled in this area is just amazing. It's like traveling back through time. So I love forests. So we're going to learn about forest management, and we're going to learn about fire disturbances. So again, when you hear a forest fire, that also has a negative connotation. Forest fires, however, are pretty vital to many ecosystems. A lot of ecosystems actually require fire to maintain their health, maintain their diversity. The 6th unit is pollution, and again, this is in modern times, so we're going to look at some Superfund sites. Now that's Superfund, F-U-N-D, not super fun. There's nothing fun about Superfund sites. So 20 miles north, in Niagara Falls, there's a Superfund site called Love Canal. And basically what a Superfund site is, it's an area that has been designated by the government a complete hazard, and the government comes in and tries to clean it up. And if you live in an area around a Superfund site, many times you get notified to move away, or it's just not good. It's not a good situation. So in 1977, Love Canal was designated a Superfund site. So a chemical company was just dumping chemicals in the area, and literal black sludge was erupting out of people's backyards. So that was crazy. However, we're going to learn about, that incident in 1977, but also, what about Flint, Michigan, right? People had so much literally today, people open their faucet and this water comes in their house, and the water in some homes is so saturated with lead that it is designated as hazardous waste. You know what's interesting about hazardous waste? You're not allowed to flush hazardous waste down the sink. So this water is coming out of their faucet, and it's not supposed to go down in their sink. So basically what I'm just talking about is that there have been, events that happened in the past, but pollution during the Anthropocene is just as prevalent as it was today. Another thing we should know about my lectures is that when you see a red word signifies that it's important, right? So when you see a red word, I'm probably going to use that on a test or a quiz. So definitely learn and write down those definitions when you see a red word, right? Those are very important. I'm transparent. I'm not trying to trick you guys. If you read the lectures, if you watch the lectures and you take notes and you make note cards of all these red terms, you will be golden, right? If you understand and learn all these red terms, you'll be good. So this leads us to our first red terms of the semester. Before we get into them, we need to learn what science is, right? Because we're studying environmental science, we need to know what science is. So science is an approach to acquire knowledge. Science, this discipline of science, very important fact, is that it never proves anything. It only disproves. And that's kind of an interesting idea. And it's something we need to completely understand. So up until 10 years ago, nobody's ever taken a picture of an atom. Atoms are too small, right? Now we have these electron scanning microscopes and all this new imaging software, and technology is getting better and better. We can actually see an atom now. So science is this discipline that's just constantly trying to disprove different theories and disprove hypotheses. And when you can't disprove something, that idea becomes more sound and they become theories, right? So the atomic theory, right? We couldn't even see atoms, but we developed these hypotheses and we tried disproving those hypotheses with experimentation, and we expanded on that experimentation, and we have these amazing theories and a vast understanding of the atom even before we actually saw an individual atom. So next I want to talk about this figure on the right, which highlights the process of the scientific method. So I'm going to continue using this atomic theory to describe the process of science, and individuals who were really interested about the fundamental building blocks of our universe, they try to describe what it is to be, what these building blocks were. So they originally would make observations about the natural world. Then they would think of interesting questions about what the observations they were seeing. Then they would formulate hypotheses. Next, first off, a hypothesis is an educated guess of what type of observations you're seeing, what types of patterns you're seeing. Hypothesis, again, an educated guess, which helps describe what you're seeing in nature. So after you develop hypotheses, you develop testable predictions, and you come up with an experiment to try, again, to disprove your hypothesis. Because again, science only disproves, it doesn't prove anything. When you can't disprove a hypothesis, then that hypothesis will become a theory. So after you come up with an experiment in developing testable predictions, you gather data from your experiment, and this is where this model really comes in handy, right here. In science, individuals can help formulate these incredible theories by expanding, refining, and altering, as well as rejecting hypotheses. So several individuals can look at a theory and they can try and disprove said theory and come up with more experiments in this process of scientific inquiry, right? So after this cycles over and over again, we come up with these theories, right? These theories that cannot be disproven, right? All these scientists from around the world are trying to disprove these ideas and these hypotheses. When they cannot be disproven, they turn into theories, right? Then you can look at those theories and make more observations on those theories and start this process all over again. So this is how science moves forward, right? So we have these two models, these two hypotheses from these individuals studying the atomic theory. And in the Thomson model, shooting charged particles through, Thomson believed that, it was, an atom didn't really consist of a central nucleus, and this is what his hypothesis, if his hypothesis was correct, this is what the path of the beam, that charged particle would pass through that gold foil, relatively unchanged. However, this scientist, Rutherford, he hypothesized that the nucleus was going to have, the center of an atom was going to have a nucleus, and that shooting a beam of charged particles through gold foil, some of those charged particles would be deflected back. And that's exactly what he saw. You can see the observed result supported Rutherford's model. So he tried to disprove Thomson's model, and he did, right? So this is more accepted. We learned through this experiment that atoms have a central nucleus. So again, the scientific method is continuously being used across multiple disciplines. Another red term we're going to focus on is paradigm shifts. So a paradigm shift, I can best explain what a paradigm shift is through just some old understandings of the Earth versus new understandings of the Earth. We know that the planet is not the center of the universe. We know that the planet Earth and all the other planets in our solar system are revolving around the sun. This is the heliocentric theory, and actually, if you take a zoomed out view of humanity, this is actually pretty new understanding. Up until 500 years ago, most of Europe was convinced that Earth was the center of not only the solar system but the actual universe. Even with scholars studying the night sky like Copernicus, writing out all of these new discoveries by using his different telescopes and such, and his work being adopted by Galileo later on, even with scholars understanding that the sun is not revolving around the Earth, that actually everything's revolving around the sun, this was not accepted over time. Instead, this idea was all of a sudden accepted by the everyday person in an event that we're just learning, again, is called the paradigm shifts. So there are multiple reasons why paradigm shifts occur. Number one, super easy to understand, is that new technology arises. New technology, especially in the field of science, allows us to see and gauge and detect things that we couldn't in the past. So, for example, when Galileo was observing Copernicus's findings with more stronger telescopes, and he could see further, and he could actually see the different phases of moons that were revolving around Jupiter, and seeing the different phases of Venus, he realized that these planets and these moons are revolving around planets, and that the planets themselves are revolving around the sun. So technology is a main reason for a paradigm shift. With better technology, there's more irrefutable facts. If you can see something now that you couldn't, you're going to be more likely to believe it, and the general public will believe it sooner. So new technology. The second thing is kind of a pretty dreary realization, and that is that old people holding on to old ideas, they eventually die. So throughout history on Earth, with humans, you have older people that just have a lot more power, that have a lot more money. They cling on to ideas and they don't allow new ones to arise. Guess what? They die, and you younger generations who are willing to better understand their surroundings, who are not clinging on to old ideas, they adopt some newer understandings and theories in these events known as paradigm shifts. The next topic we're going to learn about is the different scientific disciplines. So these are the scientific disciplines that we are going to focus on mostly in this course, right? We're obviously our course is environmental biology, but that's a pretty broad discipline, and within that broad discipline there are more specific disciplines, right? Well, the broadest discipline here is actually biology, and you guys have to know each of these red terms here. Biology, and it's good to know what the prefix for before ology is. So ology is I think it's the Greek term. It might be the Latin term. I'm pretty sure it's the Greek term for the study of. So ology, the study of, and then the prefix is bio. Bio is life. So biology is the study of life. Now, I'm going to actually go through each of these more in depth. The study of ecology is the study of ecosystems. So we'll learn about that a little more. Like I mentioned earlier, I study fungi. Myco is the prefix for fungus. So the study of fungi, the study of mushrooms is mycology. Botany is the study of plants. Climatology is the study of the climate. And geology is the study of minerals and earthly processes. So I'm going to go into each of these a little more in-depthly. So the broadest term here is the study of biology, the study of life. And you don't have to study a living organism for it to be, within the biological realm. For instance, right here we have a woolly mammoth. Woolly mammoths are extinct, but studying them, we actually uncovered, there's mammoths being uncovered from permafrost that still have their fur on them, right? We can actually, I think one of these mammoths that was discovered within the last 7 years or so actually had grass in its mouth. So the organism does not have to be living for us to designate that as the study of biology. It's just the study of life, not living things, right? They can be dead things, they can be extinct things. Again, it's really broad. Here we have large organisms like this woolly mammoth, and then you can study the building blocks of life, the nitrogenous bases within DNA. That's still a subset of biology, right? You can learn about the citric acid cycle, which is how many organisms acquire and utilize energy within their living structures. That's how ATP is synthesized, which gives organisms the energy to actually move around and carry out their metabolic processes. Obviously, in the top left, we have two living organisms. We have a carnivorous plant known as a sundew that attracted a unfortunate fly who was trying to eat the sugary substance on the sundew that happens to be very sticky, and the organism, the plant, has enveloped the insect, which will later consume it and take the nutrients from that insect. And on the bottom right, a common theme with me is I'm gonna bring in a lot of mycology in here. This is an ancient fungal spore that we'll get into later, but this is actually a fossil of a microscopic spore dated around 400 million years. So the presence of this fungus changed the way we look at terrestrial ecosystems. That's a nice segue into this slide, which is ecology. Now, ecology is the study of how species interact with their abiotic and biotic environment in a single location. So the two red terms here are abiotic and biotic. A biotic interaction, bio, is a living interaction. An abiotic interaction is an interaction an organism is having with something that's non-living. So let's take a look at this figure on the left. I found this while hiking. It was a downed pine tree, and it had these grooves within it. I know from studying ecology that these grooves are made by pine beetles. These beetles bore in the bark of pine trees, and they eventually, if the tree is totally infested like this individual, they actually kill the tree. So this is a great example of a biotic interaction. This tree was interacting with a living beetle that ended up killing it, right? That's a biotic interaction. Now, if we look in this middle picture, we have this pine forest. I did not take this picture. I believe this is in like Norway or something. But an abiotic interaction is light. How much light those trees are receiving. Light is not living, but underneath the canopy, because above the canopy you have light that's being absorbed by the leaves in the above canopy. Underneath the canopy there's less light, so plants that are underneath the canopy, they're not going to grow as fast because of this. This is kind of a little bit of both, because the biotic factor is the larger trees are actually blocking sunlight, so that is a biotic factor, but light is actually an abiotic factor. So that's not the best example. My apologies. But even the canopy trees, the reason why you're only seeing pines here and not more sunny adapted trees is because I explained that this is an ecosystem in Norway, and Norway is very north of the equator. There's less light when you're positioned further away from the equator. If you're north of the equator or south of the equator, the further you go away from the equator, there's less light, which is why you only see these types of trees here. So an abiotic factor in these ecosystems is light. Another abiotic factor is the amount of water, right? So depending on how much water an ecosystem gets, you're going to have different species that grow there. So those are some abiotic and biotic interactions here. The picture on the right, now this is my parents' dog, Stella. She might make an appearance on these lectures because I pick her up and hang out. I have her hang out with Rocco as well. On a hike at Chestnut Ridge, I found this old bottle. There's actually websites where you can search bottles, and this bottle actually was from the 50s, so it was, just in this ecosystem for 70 years. And I found it, and it had held water, and it had this species of moss in it that wasn't anywhere else, right? So it's like this bottle was like a mini ecosystem. It had its own abiotic and biotic interactions going on, and I only found this one species of moss in this miniature ecosystem. I thought that was really cool. I love studying ecology. I love learning about different species interactions. So you're going to see a lot about ecology throughout the semester. Mycology, again, I love these organisms. All of these pictures, except for the bottom right picture, all of these species you can find in our own area, right? They look so exotic, right? And we'll get to this at later lectures, but mycology is fascinating, especially for where I live, because the mushrooms I find around me are actually incredibly cool. Like they come in all shapes and sizes and colors. And when you look at one, when you find a new one, it's like you're finding like some alien life. I tend to go to Costa Rica a lot. I spend most of my money on traveling, and I love finding different organisms that you just don't find in my own backyard. But even in my own backyard, I find a ridiculous array of different mushroom species. The red term here on this slide is a saprophyte. So a saprophyte is an organism, like many of these fungi, that breaks down dead organic material, right? Different species of fungi carry out different ecological roles. One of the roles is for them to break down dead organic material. Now you see many of these species of fungi you see before you, they are growing out of wood. Now what are they doing? Well, they're actually they have these tiny thread-like, root-like structures that are expanding throughout the wood, and they are actually eating the wood. They're eating dead organic material. So saprophytes eat dead organic material. That is the red term on this. Decomposing, right? You've heard of decomposers. All decomposers are saprophytes. Botany, the study of plants. Now, I've seriously gotten into botany. As I learn more and more about fungi, I realize that these two kingdoms, plantae and fungi, they interact all of the time. And again, I go to Costa Rica. I've been there 3 times now, and these 2 pictures I took in Costa Rica. The picture on the right is one of my favorite pictures of all time. It's a cloud forest, and you could see all of these plants growing on these 2 trees, right? You can see that they're not the same plant. And on the left, I found this orchid, and this orchid too was growing on another plant. That leads us to this red term known as an epiphyte. So phyte is the Greek or Latin root. I don't know, again, if it's Greek or Latin, but phyte is plant, and epi is surface. Like your epidermis is the outermost layer of your skin, right? So epiphyte, surface plant, are plants that actually grow on the surface of other plants. We are going to learn a lot about botany this year as well. Climatology. Clearly, this is the study of climate. So, weather, we need to know the difference between weather and climate. Weather is known as the condition of the atmosphere over a short period of time. For example, today's weather was bloody cold and rainy, right? It's actually about to rain right now while I'm taking this. Oh, it's raining. Look at that. The weather today is rainy. Now, climate is over an extended to indefinite period of time. So the climate of today has been modified by human activities. The climate is broader both in space and in time. Weather is like day to day. We tend to use the geological sciences a lot in environmental biology because geology really does help us better understand Earth's past. So, like its name suggests, geology, geo is Earth. We have the study of these rock minerals and rock formations and the movement of Earth's plates. So we'll get into that a little later on. Not this lecture, but in future lectures we'll definitely get into more geology. But just a quick introduction, we have these two red terms, radioactive decay and isotopes. So the reason why we use geology so much is that if you take a look at this picture, this rock formation, you can see these different layers of rock. Those layers were deposited at different times. So the deeper you go, the furthest away from the peak, right? The deeper you go, the lower you go on this rock formation, the older those rocks were formed. So by using certain techniques, including radioactive decay, which is this understanding that certain elements actually break down at a specific rate over time. It's called their half-life. And by understanding different elements, radioactive decay, we can see what the rock is composed of. We can see how many, all the different elements, and by getting a ratio of what elements are there, by testing the amount of those existing elements, we can come up with this half-life and understand actually when the rock was deposited, because the longer it sits, the more certain atoms decay over time. With understanding that, you get to actually put a relatively close pinpoint of when that rock was actually formed. So when you come up with all these different these dates from around the world, you can build a really amazing picture. So we'll get into this when we get into extinction events, but for example, 65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs went extinct, we have this, and you could check all these different geologic formations. There is this layer of black soot, and that black soot was from this asteroid that barreled into Earth and spewed up all this rock material, all this ash, and all this ash was deposited around, pretty much all around the world. And so if you find a rock formation, you're with a geologist, and you can go down and actually see a layer that's 65 million years ago, you see this KT extinction barrier. You see this actual line in which all this soot was deposited. So that's just an example. An isotope, they use isotopes, which is similar to understanding radioactive decay. An isotope is a different version of the same element. So there are elements in the periodic table that might have an extra neutron, which is a part of their nucleus. It doesn't have a charge, so having an extra neutron or two extra neutrons doesn't change the charge of the atom, but it changes the weight, and they are going to decay at a different rate. So using isotopes, you can also better understand this relationship with time and those rocks being formed. So, an isotope, for example, carbon, I'm sure you've heard of carbon 12, carbon 13, carbon 14. So actually, carbon 12 is just regular carbon, and then carbon 13 is an isotope of carbon, and it's a carbon atom that has one extra neutron, right? And by looking at certain structures, you can see how much carbon 13 is in there, because carbon 13s are going to break down more readily than carbon 12, and same with carbon 14. So these are, again, very important tools and also red terms that we should know. So all in all, we have all these different disciplines that we've learned about, and we're going to use these disciplines to study our discipline, the discipline that we're focusing on. And I want you to understand that this is a broad discipline. There's a lot of different disciplines that help us better understand this specific discipline, which again is environmental biology. We're going to use biology to study the environment. The human population is growing exponentially. We're going to have 9 billion people by 2050. If, our population is maintained. So we inhabit nearly all of Earth's ecosystem. So in this field, we mainly study the influence we have on our biosphere. Humans are huge in interacting with our planet's environment. So in this course, we are going to see what we have done, what we're doing, and all these other processes that are going on and that had happened in the past. And we're just gonna learn a lot, and I'm really excited. Make sure that you guys are getting onto the McGraw-Hill website through Blackboard. This concludes our first lecture together. Shoot me an email if something's not clear. I'm going to post all of these lectures in a PowerPoint format, and as well links to these videos. Plan on seeing 2 videos a week. I'm going to post on, I'm going to try getting videos before Tuesday mornings and, on Tuesday mornings and on Thursday mornings. So kind of plan for a Tuesday, Thursday lecture. This is asynchronous. I did that because you can choose when you want to watch these videos. So again, this concludes our first meeting. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys are looking forward to this semester as much as I am. Thank you so much for your attention, and I will I'll be posting a lot more, so we'll see you.